Welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. Today's conversation is going to be about how do we invest in ourselves as women, and how do we help each other invest in relationships, and how do we find the right relationship with our life partners so that we can bring out the best in ourselves and support the women in our lives. To make that happen, and to have this timely and necessary life conversation, is Cristina Davy. Cristina, all the way from Sydney, Australia, welcome. Welcome to Women Investing in Women.
Oh, Cass, it's so beautiful to have you here. Robin, thank you so much for having me. I am in love with your mission. I love what you're standing for, and I truly believe that we can certainly support one another a lot more and, build a stronger community no matter where we are in the world. I mean, we have internet now, and,
Absolutely.
That's such a great tool to unite, all over this planet and create more good.
Absolutely. It is indeed a small world. As we get started, you are a relationship coach. Through your own life journey, you have come to a point where you realize what was missing, how to go about getting it, and how to make sure that you can provide what you had a journey to accomplish. You're also providing it to other women. So take us back and share with us how you got to where you are today and what brought you here.
So I grew up in Romania under communism, and unfortunately, back at the time, love was hard to come by. Parents were really focused on survival, making sure they pay the bills, they have some food on the table. I grew up in a really rough area as well. So I always had this strong desire of wanted to be loved and wanted to love, and I didn't know how to come about. So I was always focusing, how can I became a people pleaser as well, because I wanted to create that love, and I, as a child, I didn't know how. So in time, my 20s, 30s, right, I went through my own experiences. I didn't know why I was loved by men, but still it didn't work out. So I couldn't understand, like I was always falling in love with this man, they were falling in love with me, but somehow there was an obstacle. There's something that was not quite working out. So I dream about being with one man my entire life, like having this one person that you have a family with and you help each other, no matter what. But unfortunately, I had some really poor role models when it comes to relationships. I grew up with domestic violence. My dad was absent, and there was barely any sort of signs of love, like any affection or kind words. So when I got married and my ex-husband, unfortunately cheated a few times, I thought there was something that I'm doing wrong, or maybe there's something wrong with him. And I keep focusing on blaming someone for what was going on, completely overlooking the fact that I simply didn't know. I didn't know how to have a healthy, loving relationship, because my role model was, a mother who will shut down when things were not going her way, a father that, if he felt his ego felt threatened, he will just, resort to abuse, some sort of abuse or physical abuse. So how do we really learn to have a beautiful relationship? I was asking myself. And after my divorce, I put myself out there to start dating. I thought, this time I'm going to get it right. And very quickly, I end up in a toxic relationship that end up in a domestic violence situation, simply because, again, I didn't know how to have a healthy relationship. And I also didn't have the skills on choosing the right partner for myself as well, because I didn't understand. I never heard anyone talking about an ideal sort of partner vision or relationship vision. I just thought, oh, I want kids, I want to get married, I want to be there for each other, I want an honest person, someone that's going to have my back. And I had that. Like, my ex-husband had my back. He was a professional, he was a provider, he was very respectful, but he was cheating. And I didn't know how I was kind of co-creating that situation in the process until I actually invested in myself and learned those dating and relationship skills.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you say, because now there's obviously lots of research that what happened to us as children, what was modeled for us as children, we then repeat until we learn a better way. And how do you help your clients discover there are things in my past that are playing out in the present, and how can I uncover those, resolve those, and be able to move forward in a healthy way?
So we look at what is it that you want, for example. I speak with a woman and I'm like, well, what is it that you want in a relationship? What is it that you want in a partner? And then what prevents you from having that? And the moment I ask that question, usually women say, well, I lack trust, or I can't find him, or I don't believe, or I'm afraid of being hurt again. Men are not safe. There's so many thoughts and limiting beliefs that we form along, as we enter and exit a relationship, because often after a failed relationship, we get negative lessons from it. If my husband, for example, he cheated, right? So then what I decided to do unconsciously, I wasn't even conscious about it, I decided I'll never ever trust a man again. Now imagine trying to go on a date and connect with a man without being able to trust yourself or him. We can't connect from a place of fear. We connect from a place of love and curiosity and from our feminine energy. But often we got to admit, the way we live life now is completely different than how it used to be 50 years ago. And therefore, that has impacted our relationships dynamics. Men are now more confident and eager to be involved in the raising of a child, right? You see now men wearing a baby, in a wrap, or, doing the whole skin to skin contact, and they are feeling comfortable to step more into their feminine side. And then you see women becoming providers and earning the money. And, there's the need of being in a relationship is no longer there, because we are self-sufficient most of the time. We don't have these limitations of, I have to be in a marriage, I have to, I have to depend on a man, or I have to depend on a woman somehow. And therefore, men and women now just decide it's too hard, it's too hard to be in a relationship. It's too, there's too much risk. So I'll rather choose to stay single and alone. And there's this fixed mindset about, if it happens, it happens. If it happens, or it might not happen to me, it's not meant to happen to me. But it's simply because people don't know how. Like, I didn't know how. Like, after my divorce, I went online and I was looking for a guy that's nice to me and looked all right, and I felt the chemistry, and I had no idea you can create polarity with someone. You can create connection, you can create attraction, but you have to know how. And I had no idea how my communication style was actually emasculated the men around me. I didn't see. Yeah, go ahead.
So as you're talking, what is coming up for me is there's a lot of cultural baggage we bring in, a lot of family baggage we bring in. And with the world forever shrinking and we are moving for work and living in different places, we're also in cultures and environments that are not natural for us, right? Men and women from different cultures are in a third environment. What advice would you give women who are truly looking for a life partner, because life partner is more a life companion in a lot of ways. Nobody is truly self-sufficient, right? We all need somebody in our life. And having girlfriends and having friends, it's fun to get together even on every weekend. But there's a difference between that and sharing a life, right? So what advice would you have for people who are truly not in their element? They're outside of their comfort zone. So is everybody else. But in spite of that, how do we build relationships? Because the mastery of that also has workplace implications. Workplace relationships are also human relationships. So how do we break those barriers?
So there are some women, for example, that they can't attract a man. And there are women that attract a man, but they can't pass that 3 months mark or 6 months mark. Which one are you? Ask yourself, right? So am I having a problem with attraction, or am I having a problem with, maintaining a relationship? Because if I'm, if I'm not attracting, for example, it could be simply that I have turned into, my masculine side. And therefore, in order to have attraction, you have to have polarity between the masculine and feminine energy, right? So we have these beautiful sources of energy in us, and we use depending on what we're doing, we use one of them. We tap into different parts of ourselves. So now, if I want to connect in a nurturing, loving way with my son or with my partner, I'll use my feminine energy. My feminine energy in itself has multiple parts, multiple archetypes. I could use, my CEO, I could use the caretaker, or I could use maybe the celebrity in me. Each one is going to create a completely different interaction with my man or even my son. So now, understanding that and having the awareness, the knowledge, hold on a second, I have been, and this is what I realized, I have led my relationships with only two parts of me, which were the CEO. I was very bossy in my, telling him what to do all the time, which made him feel, not good enough and like he couldn't get stuff right for me. And then the caretaker, which is very mother-like, and what man wants another mother? And then when I didn't know what to do, unconsciously, I will use my celebrity, which was completely, my husband didn't know how to react to that, and he will get quite timid. So I couldn't understand all of that because I had no knowledge about it. I had no awareness of it. So I was constantly killing the attraction between the polarity between me and my husband. Now, as a woman, if let's just say you are in a powerful, successful position somewhere, in your company or maybe, corporate job as well, you might be used to talk in a certain way, have a certain stance, especially if it's a strongly dominated environment, right? You have to stand your ground. So it's a very different energy. And sometimes we're so used to being that energy that when we go on a date, we continue to be in that energy, but these men are looking for someone loving and nurturing and romantic and affectionate. And we kind of forget how to be that way with a man, especially if we have been hurt before. So we're killing the attraction unconsciously simply because we don't know how to create that and which parts to access inside of us. So that's with women, for example, who can't really attract or go on dates.
It sounds like it's what you're asking for. Sorry. Is that we need to have some self-introspection and some self-awareness. And rather than just say, oh, these men are just a bunch of losers. They might be, okay, they might be. But to say, what part am I playing in this? And rather than being the victim, it's all everyone else's fault. to step back a moment and not beat ourselves up. I'm not going there, but just to say, how do I interact with someone? And am I interacting in a way that, like you say, that is attracting, or a way that is even respectful or kind, or being interested in someone else and not just interested in yourself and expecting everyone to listen to you. So my question would be, how do you get women to have that stance of looking at themselves with a degree of honesty, looking in the mirror, without going into, beating themselves up and, oh, I'm just this awful person?
So through questions, right, and knowledge, we raise understanding of ourselves and understanding of others. We often expect men to be, to act like women. We want them to be emotionally available, which they can, but in order for us to get things done, which men, usually need to, let's just say, they go to work, or they have to get something done at work. In order to get that done, they need to use their masculine energy. They need to separate from feelings. So if you interrupt the man when he's very focused to get something, and you want to talk about something, he can't give you that because he doesn't have access to it yet, because he has to choose consciously to move into his feminine energy in order to be open to talk to you. So by not having the awareness, we can't really access those parts of us or make a conscious decision. We are just unconsciously choosing to do something that we think is right, based on what we've seen in our environment. So in my sessions or in my programs, I offer knowledge, role models, so to speak, on how to speak. And then I create that awareness through for women into, for example, I could be asking, who are you when you go on a date? Do you feel high value? Do you know you have value? Do you understand what you bring to the table? We often are so focused on what the other person brings to the table, but we're not necessarily presenting ourselves as high value, or we're not necessarily, we are demanding in our approach sometimes. So by asking certain questions, they turn inwards and they come up with answers for themselves, oh, this is what I do. And, I can see why maybe I should try this other way, because if you do the same thing over and over, you have the same results. You got to try something completely different. If you communicate to masculine energy and you're very to the point and direct, it's hard to connect with a man. We connect with a man through sharing about ourselves. We invite them in, but think about how often we don't want to let men in until they prove themselves. So if we have all these rules, and most of them are unconscious about how to be in a relationship, we could potentially be in our own way of connecting to someone. Then we keep saying, well, men nowadays, then women are coming up with ideas like, well, men nowadays, they just can't connect. They're not emotionally available. Well, actually, it's us that we don't know how to create that connection. Is this making sense? And I think in order to change something, like think about if you're sick. If you're sick and you go to the doctor and he gives you a diagnosis, you could beat yourself up for having the diagnosis, or you could be like, wow, now I know what I have and I know what treatment to follow, right? So in our emotional work, it's the same thing. First, we need to identify what the problem is. And yes, if you want to choose to beat yourself up for it, you can. But obviously, in the process of teaching them, I'm asking them, would you rather, beat yourself up, or would you rather apply what, the treatment that you need, So the same kind of thing. Like if you receive news of I have cancer, some women and men will completely froze. They're not going to do anything about it. Others will be like, well, contact, a variety of professionals, to find a solution. Now, with emotional work is the same thing. And I have some processes in place as well, like in my group program, Love Map, some meditations, that allow women to release emotions from their body, to connect with their inner child. And I'm only guiding them, they're creating their own process, their own empowering process. They're observing what they're ready to let go. They're observing what it's in the way. And they can choose to let go. They can choose to connect with that power inside themselves that maybe they even forgot or didn't even know it's there.
It's fascinating to hear you speak. I, especially coming from an arranged marriage culture, I have a love marriage, but I came from an arranged marriage culture. And my husband apparently was in love with me, and I didn't even know to recognize it. We were best friends. To me, that's all it was. And because I come from an arranged marriage culture, I didn't date. And so my husband actually proposed to me, and we got engaged before we went on a date, right? So I come at this from a completely different perspective. But I'm one of those women who is very feminine in my personal relationship, but professionally, I have to be in my masculine energy because I am working in a man's world, right? Robin and I both work and function in a man's world, but in our own right, we're very feminine. We're in finance. So each of us bring our different experiences. Just as much as a woman needs to go from her masculine energy work to her feminine energy self, men also have to make that transition.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what advice would you have for mothers as they're raising sons to raise them differently? Because that's an important step to think about.
Beautiful question. I have a 10.5-year-old son, and I have already started to talk to him about masculine and feminine energies and how you can access different parts of you depending on the situation, and teaching him. For example, we were playing basketball the other day, and he was very physical. And he said he had a rule. He said, you have to be physical when the space is so small. Because we only had we're playing on our footpath, like in the driveway. So he said, you have to be physical. And I said, who says that? Right? Trying to raise some awareness for him that he has decided that for his, for himself. So he said, well, I just know, and you don't know, he said, because you don't play basketball, right? So he already had a rule for that. And then I tried to explain to him that, well, I'm a girl and I don't really like to be physical. And when I'm feeling, as a mother, I want to use my feminine energy with him and connect with him that way. I can't be that rough because I'm a girl. I can choose to be rough, but I don't want to be rough because I don't like to be rough. So like explaining, taking the time to explain, it's okay to be loving and nurturing sometimes, and it's okay to be rough at others. So I told him it's okay maybe to be rough with other boys at school if they like that kind of play, if they agree, right? But it's not okay if the other person doesn't like it. So I think explaining and telling them, okay, well, you're so loving right now. I love this part of you. It's okay to be loving. It's okay to be affectionate. And it's okay to be very direct and to the point and focus, like in the morning when he goes to school, he's like, Mom, is my lunch ready? Or Mom, I gotta go. He's very masculine, right? And it's okay to be like that too, right? So creating a level of understanding and acceptance of how we are. There's no right or wrong. We just access different parts of us at different times.
Yeah. That's very interesting. what's kind of coming to me as I'm hearing all these different angles that you try to come at, that you have come across various challenges. I know our time is kind of wrapping up here, but what have been some of the challenges that you have faced in even starting this business and being able to like find clients and serve them well? What have been some of the internal and external challenges that you faced in carving out this path in your life?
I think finding the right message to women, if you tell a woman that, well, listen, you are the creator of your life, she can take it in any way. Because if she had a whole bunch of bad experiences, she's going to be like, what, you think I wanted to be abused? You think I wanted to? That's not what I'm about, right? When I say you are the creator of your own life, I want you to understand that it's okay to admit that maybe this approach is not working, but there are a variety of other approaches that are working, and I can try out what is it that works. So I think when I started, it was a matter of finding the right language for women to really, instead of becoming a victim and feeling like, wow, all these things are they just happen to them, like this guy was just mean to her and she couldn't do anything about it. This relationship happened and it might happen again. And those thoughts, of like how we are constantly trying to protect ourselves, and understanding women, learning more about women, learning what they really truly desire. A woman who is in her feminine energy will show up in a very different way than a woman in her masculine energy, understanding how to speak to each one of them, so I can support them in the process, so they're not in their own way. Those were things that I had to learn along the way. And I think establishing myself as an authority in the field as well, right? So how am I different? Why am I different? And I think it's really important to work with someone who has been where you've been, because they have a very different understanding of how it is to be there. And, sharing my story has inspired so many women in so many ways, because I came from domestic violence. I experienced domestic violence, and yet 9 months later, I met my current partner. But that would have not been possible without learning new skills, without understanding myself better. I was in a seminar and I had this gentleman coming to me to convince me to sign up for a relationship program. And I said, no, thank you. No relationship for me for the next 10 years. I was not interested. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And as I was talking to this man and he was asking me questions, I started to realize the truth was, it wasn't that I didn't want to be in a relationship. It wasn't that I didn't want to be loved or love again. It was that I was truly scared of experiencing another abusive relationship. So when I talk to women now and I tell them I had labels, I have been depressed, I was on antidepressants, I was on I used to have panic attacks, and I was in this domestic violence thing, and I had a massive comeback the moment I was like, well, you know what? There's a common denominator in all of these relationships, and that's me.
That makes total sense as you are talking. And so as we bring this to a close, Cristina, what is the best way for women to get in touch with you and talk to you, to seek your help, to partner with you, whatever they need to engage with you on? What's the best way to reach you?
I am present on most of the mainstream of social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Please reach out, Cristina Davy. I will be available, and I would like to offer, a free call to every single person in your audience, who wants some help, please reach out. I'll be more than happy to offer you, 30 minutes, 40 minutes of my time to talk to you and show you how or what is it your love block. It could be exposure. It could be something, your communication style. It could be you using the wrong parts inside yourself. It could be that you're too scared. You can get the support that you want. It's literally like learning to drive a car, right? I use this all the time. You wouldn't jump in a car if you had no experience, or if you had some bad experiences. You don't jump in a car and just drive. You first, learn about it. And then you have an instructor, someone who has the experience that takes you places, and then you keep practicing. Date with low stakes, not to meet the one, but rather to have fun and enjoy yourself, to explore yourself and learn more about what is it that you want, what is it that you don't want. And then when you start having fun, you can create a very different energy with a man, and you can have what you want.
Thank you so much, Cristina, for giving us your time and sharing your insights and advice with the women in our community. Robin and I have enjoyed talking to you, and our closing message to the women in our community and women who are listening. Take the time to get in touch with you, become aware of yourself. As Cristina said, be yourself in your right polarity, so that the connection you make, the relationship you're building, is truly serving you. And have fun. Life is about having fun. Live every moment to the fullest. And as long as you are enjoying life and you're being true to yourself, the universe will fall into its place.